Why is it that we often treat total strangers with more kindness and patience than the people living under our own roof? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, and today we are going to do something a little different. Usually, we look outward, at the economy, at technology, at the shifting tides of history. But today we are looking inward. We are walking through the front door of your house, stepping over the pile of shoes in the hallway, and walking right into the kitchen where the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. We are deep diving into the domestic sphere. Specifically, we are unpacking the wisdom of the late, great Richard Carlson and his seminal work, *. Don't sweat the small stuff with your family. *. Now I want you to picture a scenario. You've had a long day at work. Maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a creative. Out there in the world, you are composed. You are polite. If a stranger bumps into you on the subway, you say, "No problem." If a client makes a mistake, you say, "Let's figure this out." You are the best version of yourself. Then you put your key in the lock of your front door. You turn the handle. And suddenly, that best version of you evaporates. You walk in, you see a toy on the stairs, or your spouse asks a question in a tone you don't like, and snap, you are irritable. You are short-tempered. You are stressed. Why is that? Why do we give our best behavior to strangers and our worst behavior to the people we love the most? This is the core paradox that Carlson explores in the opening of his book. He calls the family unit a pressure cooker. On one hand, it's our refuge. It's where we go to recharge. But on the other hand, it is the primary dumping ground for every ounce of stress we accumulate in the modern world. We live in a society that is fast, complex, and demanding. We redline our engines all day long, and when we finally pull into the garage, we don't just park, we explode. Carlson argues that the things that break a family usually aren't the massive tragedies. It's not the earthquakes. It's the erosion. It's the small stuff. It's the laundry, the bills, the noise, the tone of voice. Now, before you think, "Well, that's easy for an expert to say," I want to share a story from the book that I absolutely love because it drips with humility. Richard Carlson was a world-famous psychologist. He literally wrote the book on relaxing. But he tells this story about his daughter, Kenna. There was a day when Richard was losing it, rushing around, snapping at people, sweating the small stuff. And his little daughter, Kenna, runs up to him, clutching a copy of his own book, and shouts, "Don't sweat the small stuff, Daddy!" Another time, he's lecturing his 8-year-old, Jazzy, probably about something trivial, and she looks at him over her cereal bowl and says, "Are you really the guy who teaches people how to relax?" I love that. Why does that matter? Because it sets the stage for everything we're going to talk about today. This isn't about perfection. If the expert can't be perfect, you don't have to be either. This is about gradual improvement. It's about shifting the goalpost from being right to being calm. So, how do we do that? How do we turn down the heat on the pressure cooker? Let's look at what Carlson calls the emotional climate. Think of your family like a garden. If you want flowers to grow, and by flowers I mean patience, love, laughter, you need good soil. You can't plant a rose in toxic waste and expect it to bloom. But often, that's what we do. We fill our homes with the toxic waste of hurry and criticism, and then wonder why our kids aren't behaving like angels. Carlson suggests we need to be proactive, not reactive. Most of us are firefighters. We wait for a crisis, a fight, a tantrum, and then we rush in to put it out. But what if we focused on fire prevention? One of the most practical ways he suggests doing this is respecting quiet time. In the Carlson household, if someone needs space, they take it. And here is the crucial shift: usually, when a spouse or a parent withdraws to be alone, the rest of the family takes it personally. We think, "What's wrong? Are they mad at me?" Carlson flips this. He says we need to view the desire for solitude as a positive wish, not a negative withdrawal. It's a maintenance check. If I take 20 minutes of quiet now, I am a better father for the next 4 hours. But the biggest enemy of this positive climate? It's the clock. We are all obsessed with time. We are all rushing. And Carlson identifies racing against the clock as the root of almost all irritability. Think about it. When are you most likely to snap at your kids? It's when you're running late for school. You're gripping the steering wheel, your knuckles are white, and you're screaming, "Where are your shoes?" Carlson offers a strategy here that is so simple it's almost insulting, but it's profound. He calls it the 10-minute buffer. The idea is to start everything 10 minutes earlier than you think you need to. If it takes 20 minutes to get to soccer practice, you leave 30 minutes before. Why? Because the universe is chaotic. A shoe will be lost. A diaper will need changing. The car will be low on gas. These are the small stuff. If you have no buffer, that lost shoe is a crisis. It raises your blood pressure. It ruins the drive. But if you have that 10-minute buffer, the lost shoe is just a lost shoe. You find it, you leave, and you're still on time. You shift from chasing time to actually inhabiting it. You can actually enjoy the car ride with your child instead of treating it like a tactical insertion mission. Now let's pivot to the partnership dynamic, because this is where a lot of us struggle. Carlson brings up a fascinating comparison, the spouse versus the best friend. Let's say your best friend calls you up and says, "Hey, I've been working so hard lately. I think I'm going to take a weekend trip solo just to recharge." What do you say? You say, "That's amazing. You deserve it. Go have fun." Now, imagine your spouse says the exact same thing. "I'm exhausted. I want to go away for the weekend alone." What's the gut reaction? For many of us, it's hurt. It's resentment. "Oh, you're tired? You think I'm not tired? Who's going to watch the kids?" We treat our spouses with a level of possessiveness and expectation that we would never put on a friend. Carlson argues that a happy person is a willing helper. If you want a cooperative spouse, you have to treat them with the gratitude you'd show a stranger. He and his wife, Chris, have a habit of saying, "Thank you," for the routine stuff. "Thank you for working hard. Thank you for emptying the dishwasher." When you feel appreciated, helping feels like a gift. When you feel taken for granted, helping feels like slavery. And speaking of perspective, we have to talk about the masters of perspective, children. There is a story in the book about a sandpit. Carlson is playing with his 2-year-old. They are having a blast. But then, he has to leave. He has to go to work or a meeting. The kid loses it. Crying, screaming, total devastation. It feels like the end of the world. Carlson feels terrible. He walks out the door, gets to his car, and realizes, I forgot my keys. He walks back to the house, peeks through the window, and what does he see? The child is laughing. He's back in the sandpit, playing with the babysitter, having the time of his life. The tragedy lasted exactly 30 seconds. Why? Because children live in the present. The child let go of the past, the dad leaving, instantly. He didn't carry it. Adults? We carry the bag. If we have a fight over coffee at 7 a.m., we are still replaying that fight in our heads at 3 p.m. We drag the morning into the afternoon. Carlson's point is that we need to emulate that sandpit mindset. The present moment is the only place where happiness exists. If you are obsessing over a past argument, or worrying about a future bill, you are vacating the premises of your own life. Now, as we move deeper into the book, what we might call the second chunk of wisdom, Carlson starts talking about agency. There is a pervasive myth that stress is something that happens to us. But Carlson argues that stress is often something we invite in because we refuse to set boundaries. Let's talk about the telephone. Or, in modern terms, the smartphone. Carlson has a chapter titled simply, "Don't Answer the Phone." Now, this was written a few years ago, but it's more relevant today than ever. We act as if a ringing phone is a summons from the king. We interrupt dinner, we interrupt a bedtime story, we interrupt a deep conversation with our spouse just because a device makes a noise. Carlson asks us to look at the logic of this. When you answer a call during a family moment, the message you are sending to your family is, "Whoever is on this line, even if it's a telemarketer or a stranger, is more important right now than you are." It breaks the spell. It shatters the intimacy. He talks about buying a phone with a silent ringer, or just letting the machine take it. This is about reclaiming the sanctity of your home. Your home is a fortress. You control the drawbridge. Don't lower it for just anyone. This leads right into the concept of authenticity. A lot of family stress comes from what I call performance anxiety. We aren't living our lives, we are performing them for an audience, neighbors, parents, Instagram followers. We buy houses we can't afford to impress people we don't like. We push our kids into activities they hate because it looks good on a college application. Carlson calls this a lack of internal truth. When you are constantly trying to meet external expectations, you are creating friction. And friction causes heat. That's the irritability you feel. He challenges us to listen to the quiet voice of inner wisdom. If you hate the travel soccer league, pull your kid out. If you can't afford the renovation, don't do it. There is a tremendous peace that comes from dropping the act. But authenticity must be paired with reliability. Chapter 12 is all about keeping your promises. Trust is the currency of family life. If the currency is devalued, the economy of the home collapses. Carlson tells a story about missing his daughter's soccer game because he had to go on a national TV show. That's a big deal. But his daughter was fine with it. Why? Because he had a track record. He had a high balance in the trust account. The lesson here is to avoid casual promises. You know the ones. I'll be home by 6. I'll fix that shelf on Saturday. We say these things to make people happy in the moment, but if we don't follow through, we create a deficit. It is far better to promise nothing and deliver a surprise, than to promise the moon and deliver nothing. Now let's get physical. We talked about emotional climate, but what about the physical climate? Clutter. Carlson has a rule. 1 in, 1 out. Our homes are filled with stuff. Toys, clothes, gadgets. Physical clutter leads to mental clutter. It creates a boxed-in feeling. The rule is simple. If your child gets a new teddy bear, an old one has to be donated. This does 2 things. First, it keeps the house livable. But more importantly, it teaches generosity. It teaches non-attachment. It breaks the cycle of endless accumulation that drives so much financial stress in families. And while we are removing things, let's remove the need to be the chief entertainment officer for our children. One of my favorite chapters is Let Children Be Bored. We live in an age of overstimulation. If a kid sits still for 10 seconds, we shove an iPad in their hands. We are terrified of boredom. But Carlson argues that boredom is the soil of creativity. When a child says, "I'm bored," the correct response is, "That's okay." It's good to be bored sometimes. By refusing to solve their boredom, you force them to go inward. You force them to use their imagination. You are teaching them that they are responsible for their own happiness, a lesson that many adults still haven't learned. Now I want to touch on 2 more concepts from this section that deal with how we process reality. First, expect the inevitable. Spilled milk. It's a cliché, but it's a profound metaphor. If you live in a house with children, milk will be spilled. Carpets will get stained. Ceramics will break. These are statistical certainties. Yet, when it happens, we act shocked. We gasp. We get angry. Carlson says, why are you surprised? If you accept that mishaps are part of the package, you lose the reflex of anger. You just grab a towel. You move from, "Why did this happen to me?" to, "Okay, clean up on aisle 4. It's the power of acceptance. Second, white spaces. You need to schedule. Nothing. Literally. Open your calendar. Find a block of time, maybe it's Sunday afternoon, maybe it's Thursday night, and mark it with a big X. That is a white space. It is protected time. It is as important as a doctor's appointment or a board meeting. If you wait until everything is done to take a break, you will never take a break. Because the work of a family is never done. You have to carve the piece out of the stone of your schedule. Alright, so we've built the foundation. We've set the boundaries. We've decluttered the house and the calendar. Now, in the final stretch, we have to master the inner game. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is about what happens inside your head in the milliseconds before you react. Carlson talks about pre-visualization. It's like an athlete visualizing a race. You need to visualize your reaction to stress before the stress happens. He gives an example of his kids screaming and fighting. Normally, he would yell. He would dive into the fray. But this time, he played the inner game. He decided beforehand, I won't let this fight bother me. So, the fight starts. The noise level rises. And instead of jumping up, he sits on the sofa. He keeps reading his book. He removes the audience. And guess what? Without the audience, without the parent adding their own chaotic energy to the fire, the fight fizzles out. He maintained his peace, and by doing so, he calmed the room. This is emotional regulation. It is realizing that you are the thermostat, not the thermometer. A thermometer just reflects the temperature of the room. A thermostat sets it. And the most powerful tool you have to set that temperature? Love. Express love. Carlson points out a tragedy in human behavior. We assume people know we love them. We think, I go to work every day, I pay the mortgage, I cook dinner, obviously I love them. But unspoken love is like a gift that is never unwrapped. It's there, but it's not being enjoyed. He urges us to verbalize it. Say, I love you. Say it when you wake up. Say it when you hang up the phone. Say it when you're angry, especially when you're angry. Why does this matter? Because verbal affection is a reset button. It breaks down walls. It boosts self-esteem. It creates a safety net. And let's be honest, nobody on their deathbed ever said, I wish my spouse hadn't told me they loved me so much. But how do we know when we're drifting away from love and toward anger? We have to look for the warning signs. Every family has them. It's like the dashboard of your car. Before the engine blows up, a little light comes on. For Carlson, the warning light is, hurry. When he feels that sense of rushing, that frantic energy, he knows that anger is just around the corner. The strategy is to catch it early. Don't wait for the explosion. When you feel the hurry, or you feel the tightness in your chest, that is a signal to self-adjust. It's a signal to back off. To take that 10-minute buffer. To go quiet. It's about giving yourself permission to step back and say, whoa, the engine is overheating. Pull over. So, where does this leave us? We've traveled a long way in this episode. We started with the paradox of the family as a pressure cooker. We learned to treat our spouses like best friends. We learned to build a 10-minute buffer against the chaos. We learned to stop answering the phone, to let our kids be bored, and to expect the spilled milk. And finally, we learned that the ultimate battleground is inside our own minds, the choice to remain calm, the choice to speak love. The choice to see the warning signs before the crash. Richard Carlson's message isn't that you should be a perfect parent or a perfect spouse. Those people don't exist. His message is that peace is a practice. It's a muscle. And every time you choose to let go of a small thing, every time you choose to laugh instead of yell, every time you choose to hug instead of lecture, you are making that muscle stronger. The world out there? It's big, it's scary, and it's stressful. But inside your home? That should be the one place where you don't have to sweat. So, tonight, when you walk through that door, take a deep breath. Leave the world outside. Look at the people in front of you. And remember, almost all of it is small stuff. Thanks for listening.